In this episode, we're going to treat wireless security as a set of understandable risk decisions rather than a black box of radio jargon. Wireless networks are convenient because they remove cables, but that convenience comes with a security shift. Your network boundary becomes the air around you, which means people you don't know can potentially observe, interfere with, or attempt to join your network from nearby. Beginners often focus on the idea of hiding a network name or turning the signal strength down, but the real safety comes from choosing strong authentication, using safe encryption, and adopting defaults that prevent common misconfigurations. Wireless security is also not just about preventing strangers from joining. It is about preventing eavesdropping, preventing rogue devices from tricking users, and reducing the impact if something does go wrong. By the end, you should be able to explain the main wireless risks, understand what safe defaults look like, and feel confident about why certain configuration choices matter, even without diving into device-specific setup steps. To start, it helps to understand why wireless networks are inherently different from wired networks in a security sense. In a wired network, an attacker often needs physical access to a port or infrastructure, which adds friction and limits who can easily attempt attacks. In wireless, the medium is shared and broadcast, so anyone within range can potentially see that a network exists and can capture radio traffic. Encryption can protect the content of the traffic, but the presence of the network and some metadata are still observable. Wireless networks are also easier to imitate because an attacker can create a fake network name that looks familiar and trick devices into connecting. This means wireless security has to account for both passive threats like eavesdropping and active threats like impersonation and interference. The practical point for beginners is that wireless is not automatically unsafe, but it requires stronger defensive choices because the attack surface is more accessible. When you adopt safe defaults, you make the most common wireless attacks significantly harder. A useful way to organize wireless risks is to separate them into access risks, confidentiality risks, and manipulation risks. Access risks involve unauthorized users joining the network, which can lead to internal scanning, lateral movement, and exploitation of devices inside the network. Confidentiality risks involve eavesdropping on traffic, which can expose sensitive information if encryption is weak or if users fall back to insecure application protocols. Manipulation risks involve attackers altering traffic, forcing reconnections, or tricking users into connecting to malicious networks, which can lead to credential theft or session hijacking. There are also availability risks, because wireless networks can be disrupted through interference and deliberate jamming-like behavior. But for most security planning, the first three categories are the most central. Beginners often focus only on the access risk, like keeping strangers out, but confidentiality and manipulation can be just as damaging. A strong wireless posture aims to reduce all of these, not just one. One of the biggest misconceptions beginners have is believing that the network name, often called the Service Set Identifier, SSID, provides security. The SSID is simply an identifier that helps devices know which network they are connecting to, and it can be seen by anyone scanning the air, even if you hide it. Hiding a network name can even create new problems, because devices may probe for hidden networks more aggressively and reveal that they are looking for that network in public places. Security does not come from obscurity of the name. It comes from strong authentication and encryption. Another misconception is assuming that a strong password alone is enough, regardless of the security mode used by the network. The mode determines how that password is used, how encryption keys are derived, and how resistant the system is to offline guessing. So the right mindset is to treat the network name as a label, not a lock, and to focus on the actual cryptographic and authentication settings as the true defensive controls. Safe defaults begin with choosing modern wireless security modes and avoiding legacy options that were designed for earlier eras. Older wireless protection schemes have weaknesses that make them vulnerable to capture and crack attacks or to manipulation that forces weaker behavior. Modern wireless security improves both encryption and handshake design, which reduces the risk that attackers can guess credentials or hijack connections through protocol weaknesses. This is why secure organizations treat legacy compatibility as a risk decision rather than a convenience. If you keep old modes enabled to support old devices, you create a weak point that attackers can target, And you also increase the chance of downgrade-like behavior where devices connect using weaker settings than intended. The safer approach is to prioritize modern secure modes and to retire devices that cannot support them, because that is often cheaper than the long-term risk of maintaining insecure compatibility. For beginners, the key idea is that wireless security is not timeless. It evolves, and safe defaults mean keeping up with what is currently considered strong. Configuration pitfalls often come from trying to solve usability problems with insecure shortcuts. A classic example is using one shared password for everyone and never changing it, which makes it impossible to control who has access over time and makes it hard to remove access when someone leaves. Another pitfall is using simple, guessable passphrase because users complain about typing, which turns the strongest protocol into a weak barrier because attackers can guess credentials offline if they capture the right handshake material. Another pitfall is leaving management interfaces exposed or using default credentials on wireless infrastructure, which can allow attackers to reconfigure the network rather than attacking the cryptography directly. Wireless security is often broken not at the radio layer, but at the administrative layer, where mismanagement gives attackers the power to disable protections or to redirect traffic. Beginners sometimes focus heavily on the encryption mode and forget that the system controlling the network is itself a high-value target. Safe defaults, therefore, include both strong wireless settings and strong administrative protections around the wireless equipment. Another major risk is rogue access points and evil twin networks, which are attacks based on impersonation rather than cracking. An attacker can create a network with a familiar name, and devices may connect automatically if they are configured to trust that name. Once connected, the attacker can observe traffic, present phishing pages, or attempt to capture credentials through various tricks. Even when application traffic uses strong encryption, users can still be fooled into entering passwords into fake portals or approving prompts on malicious pages. The most important defense is to ensure that devices connect only to trusted networks using authentication methods that verify the network's identity, not just a shared password and a familiar name. Another defense is user awareness, meaning users understand that a familiar network name is not proof of legitimacy, especially in public places. For beginners, the key shift is realizing that wireless is vulnerable to impersonation because the air does not come with identity labels, so identity must be established through cryptographic means and good device behavior. Segmentation is also a key wireless safe default because it reduces the damage if someone does gain wireless access. Many environments treat wireless as inherently more exposed than wired, which means it should not automatically have unrestricted access to internal systems. Separating guest access from internal access is a classic example, but even within internal wireless, you can limit what devices can reach based on role and need. This ties wireless security to the broader idea of limiting blast radius, because even strong authentication can be undermined by compromised credentials or compromised devices. If a compromised phone connects to internal wireless, segmentation can prevent it from reaching critical servers. Beginners sometimes assume that once someone is on the network, they are inside and can do anything. But secure networks are designed so inside does not mean unlimited. Wireless security, therefore, includes architectural choices about where wireless traffic is allowed to go, not just whether it can join in the first place. Another area where safe defaults matter is device behavior, because clients make decisions about networks based on remembered settings and convenience. Devices often store preferred networks and may auto-join when they see the same network name again, which is convenient but can be abused by attackers who mimic that name. Devices may also aggressively seek known networks, which can leak information about where the user has been and what networks they trust. Secure posture includes managing auto-join behavior, removing old networks, and being cautious about saving credentials for public networks. It also includes understanding that captive portals and login pages can be used to trick users because they resemble normal Wi-Fi login flows. For beginners, the core idea is that your security depends not only on the network configuration, but also on how client devices decide what to trust. A perfectly configured internal network does not help if devices keep auto-joining malicious networks in the wild. Monitoring and detection can also strengthen wireless security, because not every risk can be eliminated through configuration alone. Monitoring may include noticing unfamiliar devices joining the network, sudden changes in wireless infrastructure behavior, or unusual patterns like repeated authentication failures that suggest password guessing attempts. It can also include noticing rogue access points in the area that share your network name or that appear to be mimicking legitimate infrastructure. The main purpose of monitoring is to reduce dwell time, meaning the time an attacker can operate before being detected. Beginners sometimes assume wireless attacks are either impossible or immediately obvious, but many attacks are quiet and opportunistic. Early detection allows rapid response, such as changing credentials, blocking devices, or investigating suspicious infrastructure changes. Monitoring is not about perfection. It is about visibility and the ability to react before small issues become major incidents. Policy trade-offs are present in wireless security too, because convenience pressures are strong. People want simple passwords, they want easy guest access, and they want every device to work without friction. Strict policies can frustrate users, but overly permissive settings create predictable risk, especially in environments with sensitive data. The best approach is to choose safe defaults that are strong but usable, and to provide approved alternatives when exceptions are needed. For example, if a guest network is required, it should be isolated by design rather than sharing the same trust space as internal systems. If older devices cannot use modern security modes, the policy decision should be explicit and the risk should be contained rather than silently accepted. Wireless security works best when policy is treated as a design choice informed by risk, not as a battle between security and usability. For beginners, it is helpful to see that strong security is often achieved through clear boundaries and realistic options, not through extreme lockdown that people will evade. To close, locking down wireless networks confidently means understanding the three core risks: unauthorized access, eavesdropping, and manipulation through impersonation or interference. Safe defaults focus on modern security modes, strong authentication choices, and the elimination of legacy options that widen the attack surface. Configuration pitfalls often come from convenience shortcuts, such as weak shared credentials, unmanaged administrative access, and assumptions that hiding a network name provides protection. Rogue networks and evil twins remind us that names are not identity, so devices must authenticate networks, not just recognize labels. Segmentation limits blast radius when wireless access is compromised, and device behavior management reduces auto-join and trust mistakes in public environments. With a clear model of these risks and a commitment to strong defaults, wireless stops being a mysterious danger zone and becomes a manageable part of a well-designed security posture.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit BareMetalCyber.com.